Today on Black and Blue Crime, we will be talking about a crime that shattered a whole family. The 16th of November 2024, the chill of a Scottish autumn had firmly settled over Glenlee. Inside a cozy flat, bathed in the warm glow of evening, Phoenix Spencer Horn, 21 years old, typed a quick message to her mother, just having takeout dinner with Yuan. A mundane text, a routine update, yet it would become a haunting echo in the days to come. Phoenix was a radiant young woman, her spirit as bright as her smile, and her beauty undeniable. She was fiercely loved by her family, a daughter who brought light and completion to their lives. Her relationship with Yuan Mathan, 27 years old, seemed, from the outside, to be just as bright. They had met 2 years prior at a family gathering, a chance encounter that blossomed into what appeared to be a loving, carefree partnership. They traveled, they laughed, they planned a future that, to all observers, promised happiness. But behind the cheerful facade, cracks were forming, subtle at first, then widening with insidious speed. Yuan, a postal worker, harbored a possessiveness that twisted his affection into something dark and suffocating. He saw Phoenix not as an equal partner, but as an object, a possession. Unbeknownst to Phoenix's loving family, his anger was a simmering pot, occasionally bubbling over in ways that Phoenix, perhaps, tried to rationalize or hide. The text to her mother spoke of a shared meal, a moment of domestic peace. Yet the seeds of a monstrous act were already sown, watered by a corrosive cocktail of jealousy, anger, and a desperate need for control that Yuan could no longer contain. The details of the horror that unfolded after Phoenix sent that last text are almost too gruesome to bear. Sometime after their seemingly innocuous dinner, the simmering rage within Yuan Mathan erupted. The argument, perhaps fueled by Yuan's growing resentment over Phoenix's waitressing shifts that left him feeling lonely, escalated with terrifying speed. Prosecutors would later reveal that jealousy and anger were the true architects of the crime, not the drug-induced psychosis Yuan would later claim. In a moment of unfathomable cruelty, Yuan inflicted a fatal blow to Phoenix's chest. It was the final, devastating act in a descent into madness that would shock a nation. The silence that followed the fatal blow must have been deafening, broken only by Yuan's ragged breaths. What kind of person, having just extinguished the life of someone they claimed to love, could then embark on a chilling charade? For 2 agonizing days, Yuan Mathan orchestrated a horrific deception. He used Phoenix's phone, sending texts to her worried family, pretending she was still alive, still there, still safe. He drove her car, immersing himself in the mundane routines of life as if nothing had changed. And in the chilling depths of his depravity, he scrolled through pornography, searching more than 170 times on the internet, and even attempted to buy cocaine. This was not the act of a man consumed by a sudden, regrettable blackout. This was calculated, cold, and utterly devoid of remorse. The charade, however, could not last. On the 18th of November, 2024, Yuan Mathan finally made the call to the police. When officers arrived at the couple's flat in Glenlee, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror and a man unsettlingly calm amidst the carnage. Phoenix's body lay covered in the hallway, 2 blood-stained knives nearby, silent witnesses to a monstrous crime. With an eerie placidness, Yuan confessed, "I could not stay here with her like that. I tried to dismember her. I moved her from the bath and put her there." He admitted to choking Phoenix, then attempting to sever her head. Though he claimed he couldn't get himself to do it fully, the very attempt spoke volumes about his disturbed state. Sarah Horn, Phoenix's mother, felt a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. The initial texts from Phoenix had been reassuring, but as hours turned into a full day, then another, the messages felt off. They lacked Phoenix's usual sparkle, her unique turns of phrase. It was subtle at first, a tiny prickle of worry, but it grew into a relentless throb. Sarah tried calling, but the calls went straight to voicemail. Then came the infrequent, bland texts, always claiming Phoenix was busy or tired. A mother knows her child, knows the rhythm of their words, the nuances of their laughter, even in a simple text. This wasn't her Phoenix. The gnawing feeling became a sharp dread, a premonition of something terribly wrong. Sarah spoke to other family members, trying to quell her rising panic. "Have you heard from Phoenix? Does anything feel strange to you?" They shared her concern, noting the unusual silence from their normally communicative loved one. Yuan's explanations, delivered through Phoenix's phone, were vague and unsatisfying. He claimed Phoenix was unwell, then that she was resting, then that she needed space. Each excuse felt like a flimsy shield, barely concealing a deeper, more sinister truth. The family's frantic calls to the flat went unanswered, compounding their anxiety. They debated what to do, how to act without overreacting, yet every fiber of Sarah's being screamed that something terrible had befallen her beautiful girl. The phone rang on the afternoon of the 18th of November. It was the police. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat, a cold dread washing over her. She knew, with an instinct chillingly accurate, that this call would shatter her world. The officers' voices were grave, their words a blur as they explained that they were at Phoenix's flat. Then came the unimaginable. "We found Phoenix. She's dead." The world tilted. The air left her lungs. The scream that tore from Sarah's throat was primal, a sound of profound grief and horror that would forever echo in the minds of those who heard it. Her Phoenix, her bright, beautiful Phoenix, was gone. The crime scene in the Glenlee flat was a tableau of horror. Police officers, hardened by years of confronting human depravity, were visibly shaken. The sight of Phoenix's body, covered in the hallway, told a story of brutal violence. The two blood-stained knives, glinting dully in the artificial light, hinted at the ferocity of the attack. Yuan Methon, however, stood detached, almost serene, as if observing a scene unconnected to him. His calm demeanor in the face of such devastation sent shivers down the spines of the seasoned detectives. It was an unnatural composure, the kind that spoke of a chilling disconnect from reality, or perhaps a practiced indifference. "I could not stay here with her like that. I tried to dismember her. I moved her from the bath and put her there." Yuan's words were delivered with a disturbing lack of emotion, a flat recitation of unimaginable acts. He then admitted to choking her, followed by the gruesome detail of trying to sever her head. His explanation of blacking out, of having no memory of the 20 stab wounds, 10 to her face, others to her backside, before the final fatal blow to her chest, felt like a performance. The officers knew better. They had seen enough. The meticulous attempts to cover up the crime for 2 days, the deceitful texts, the internet searches for pornography, the attempts to buy cocaine, these were not the actions of a man in a drug-induced fog. This was a man who knew precisely what he had done, and then sought to hide it. Investigators immediately began piecing together the timeline of Yuan's movements after the murder. Phoenix's phone records confirmed his chilling pretense, the bland text to her family designed to allay suspicion. GPS data from her car showed him driving around almost casually for the entire weekend following the murder. The internet history on his devices painted a picture of a man utterly detached from the horror he had inflicted, his mind consumed by base desires rather than remorse or panic. The sheer volume of pornography searches was particularly disturbing, suggesting a profound objectification of women, perhaps a key to understanding his pathological possessiveness. The Crown Prosecution Service began to build an unassailable case against Yuan Methon. They had the confession, the crime scene evidence, the forensic analysis, and the damning digital trail. Yuan's claims of a drug and alcohol-induced psychotic episode would be vigorously challenged. Prosecutors focused on the motive, jealousy, and anger. Yuan had complained to Phoenix about her waitressing shifts, making him lonely on the very day of the murder. This was not a random act of madness. It was a crime fueled by a controlling rage that had festered beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic relationship. Among the crucial pieces of evidence was the testimony of a delivery driver. On the very night of the murder, this driver had encountered both Phoenix and Yuan. Their interaction was brief, transactional, but the driver's observation was clear. Yuan Methon had shown no signs of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol. He appeared coherent, unremarkable. This testimony directly contradicted Yuan's later claims of a drug-fueled blackout, adding another layer of premeditation to the horrific act. It dismantled the defense's primary narrative, painting a picture of a calculating killer, not an out-of-control addict. The High Court in Glasgow braced itself for the trial of Yuan Methan. The weight of Phoenix Spencer Horne's tragic death hung heavy in the air. Yuan, who had so meticulously tried to defeat the ends of justice by concealing his crimes, would now face justice head-on. The public gallery was filled with Phoenix's grieving family and friends, their faces etched with pain, their presence a silent testament to the devastating void left by her absence. They sought answers, they sought justice, but most of all, they sought a semblance of peace in the face of unimaginable loss. Judge Lord Matthews, a man of profound experience in the darkest corners of human behavior, presided over the case. Before rendering punishment, his voice, though measured, carried the full weight of the court's solemnity. He addressed Yuan Methan directly, his words piercing the courtroom's silence. I have rarely read such outpourings of grief as are contained in the victim impact statements from her family, who have endeavored to put into words what can never truly be encapsulated. He spoke of the sadness and the deep sense of loss that would forever haunt them, a direct consequence of Yuan's monstrous actions. The victim impact statements submitted by Phoenix's family were not just documents, they were raw cries from broken hearts. Her mother wrote of the quiet moments, the future dreams, the laughter that would never be heard again. Her siblings spoke of a sister who was their confidant, their rock, their best friend. Each word was a testament to the vibrant life Yuan had stolen, to the profound emptiness he had created. Lord Matthews recognized that no words, no legal proceeding, could ever truly capture the depth of their anguish. It was an ocean of grief, endless and all-consuming. Lord Matthews continued, his gaze fixed on the man in the dock. The way you treated this innocent young woman after her death meant that her family did not even have the comfort of saying goodbye to her. This statement cut to the very core of Yuan's heinous actions. The dismemberment, the concealment, the 2-day charade. It wasn't just murder. It was an act of profound disrespect to Phoenix's memory and an agonizing denial of her family's right to mourn with dignity. The family had been robbed not only of their daughter, but also of the sacred ritual of farewell, a final embrace, a last look. I know that nothing I can say or do, and no punishment I can inflict will ever be enough, Lord Matthews acknowledged, the helplessness of the law in the face of such evil palpable. The only sentence I can pass on the charge of murder is one of imprisonment for life. The words rang with finality, life imprisonment. A just, yet still insufficient recompense for the life so cruelly taken. Yuan Methan would also serve a punishment part of his sentence, a minimum period before he could even apply for parole, a decision that would rest with future authorities. The judge's words were a stark declaration. Yuan Methan's freedom was over, irrevocably lost due to his own depravity. In the immediate aftermath of Phoenix's murder, her family, grappling with unimaginable grief, channeled their pain into action. They launched a fundraising page, initially to help with the unexpected and devastating funeral costs. The response was overwhelming. Thousands upon thousands of pounds poured in from a shocked and sympathetic public, a testament to the outpouring of love for Phoenix and the collective horror at her fate. It was a small beacon of light in their darkest hour, a sign that Phoenix, even in death, had touched countless lives. With the funeral costs covered, Phoenix's family made a profound decision. The leftover money, the vast sum that remained, would not be kept. Instead, they donated it to a women's aid charity. This act of profound generosity and foresight was more than just a donation, it was a powerful statement. The charity, deeply moved by the family's resilience and resolve, vowed to use every penny to protect others from similar fates, to continue Phoenix's legacy of light and love. On social media, their message resonated deeply. Her name, Phoenix, now stands for more than loss. It stands for action, for change, for refusing to let her story end in silence. The charity's words encapsulated the family's unwavering spirit. This is what it means to rise from the ashes, to take this devastating crime and use it to protect others. Phoenix's name, synonymous with rebirth, now took on an even deeper meaning. Her short life, brutally cut short, would not be defined solely by its tragic end. Instead, her memory would become a force for good, a shield for the vulnerable. It was a testament to the love that transcended death, turning unimaginable pain into a powerful, enduring purpose. Phoenix should still be here, they knew, but her legacy would be one that lifted others up, and that mattered profoundly. Just before sentencing, a letter from unpack was presented to the judge. In it, he attempted to convey remorse. "I know how loved Phoenix was, and how she made her family complete. I cannot believe I have taken her from them." On the surface, the words seemed to acknowledge the immense suffering he had caused. It was a plea, perhaps, for leniency, or an attempt to appear human in the eyes of the court and the grieving family. But for those who had witnessed the sheer brutality of his actions, and the calculated deception that followed, the words felt hollow, a mere performance. Lord Matthews, however, was not swayed. He had presided over countless cases, witnessed endless performances of manufactured remorse. He saw through the thinly veiled attempt at redemption. "I have this morning seen a letter written by you," he stated in court, his tone devoid of sympathy, "but it answers none of the questions which must be plaguing the family." The judge pointed out the fundamental flaw in Yuan's narrative. He blamed substances, a common excuse, but one that offered no genuine insight into the why. It was a deflection, not an explanation. Yuan's letter continued to blame the effect of substances for his actions, but Lord Matthews firmly rejected this as an excuse. While drugs could lower inhibitions, they did not create the inherent rage or the pathological possessiveness that clearly drove Yuan. The judge took into account Yuan's lack of a prior criminal record and his guilty plea, the factors that typically offered some mitigation. Yet, these paled in comparison to the sheer depravity of the crime. The appeal court's recent decisions regarding punishment parts were also considered, ensuring the sentence was in line with justice for such a horrific act. The sentence was delivered, the gavel fell, and a measure of justice was served. But for the legal minds, the public, and particularly for Phoenix's shattered family, the biggest question lingered, an aching void that no verdict could fill. Why? Why would unpack do this? How could a man who claimed to love Phoenix commit such a heinous and cruel act, especially given his seemingly normal life as a postal worker, with no prior criminal record? The legal process had concluded, but the psychological enigma of unpack remained. To truly grapple with the why, the narrative turned to forensic psychiatry. Dr. Daniel Bober, a respected expert in the field, was brought in to offer insight into the dark crevices of the human mind that could conceive of such a crime. His analysis, though clinical, provided a chilling framework for understanding Yuan's actions. The immediate thought, Dr. Bober explained, was of someone consumed by rage, completely unhinged, driven by a pathological possessiveness that saw Phoenix as nothing more than an object. Bober elaborated on the concept of objectification. When a person views their partner as an object rather than an individual with their own will and autonomy, the relationship ceases to be one of love and becomes one of ownership. "This is mine. I possess this. No one is going to come into my territory." This deep-seated sense of entitlement, coupled with a narcissistic injury, a perceived threat to their ego, could trigger an explosive rage. For Yuan, Phoenix's independent life, her work, her existence beyond his immediate control, might have been perceived as a challenge to his perceived ownership. Dr. Bober theorized that such a horrific act rarely appears out of the blue. There were likely escalating patterns of abuse that remained hidden from public view. "You know, we think about the O.J. Simpson case," he noted. "These things sort of crescendo. They don't happen out of the blue. Usually, it starts off with a push, a shove, and it gets worse." This implied a history of control, manipulation, and perhaps even prior acts of violence that Phoenix, like many victims, may have concealed from her family, either out of fear, shame, or a misguided hope that things would improve. A core issue, according to Dr. Bober, lay in problems with anger, rage, and self-regulation. Individuals prone to such violence often struggle to control their impulses and emotions. The substance abuse, while not an excuse, certainly played a role in lowering inhibitions and impairing judgment. Cocaine, a stimulant, could heighten paranoia and aggression, potentially pushing an already volatile individual over the edge. The question wasn't if Yuan was high, but what underlying psychological predispositions were already present, waiting for a catalyst. The most unsettling aspect for many was how seemingly normal Phoenix and Yuan's relationship appeared. Phoenix's last text message, casually mentioning dinner, highlighted the deceptive veneer that often cloaks abusive dynamics. Dr. Bober emphasized that every family has secrets, and people are very good at playing roles and projecting a certain image into the world. Social media, in particular, often presents a curated, idealized version of reality. Victims, he explained, frequently conceal abuse from their families, not wanting to hear advice they already suspect is true, preferring to maintain the illusion of a normal life. Yuan's apology letter continued to be a point of contention. Dr. Bober found it insincere. The contrast between the horrific nature of the crime, the mutilation, the decapitation attempt, the sheer brutality, and the carefully worded apology was stark. Don't look at what people say. Look at what they do, Dr. Bober advised. Yuan's actions spoke volumes. He showed no mercy, no empathy, no genuine remorse in the immediate aftermath of the murder. The letter, he suggested, was more likely a strategic move, perhaps encouraged by his defense attorney, rather than a heartfelt expression of regret. Another puzzling element was Yuan's apparent lack of a prior criminal record. How does someone go from seemingly clean to committing such a horrific homicide? Dr. Bober explained that people are very good at hiding things. Unless they've had contact with law enforcement, their hidden pathologies can remain undetected. The substance use in this context might have been the fuel on the fire, the factor that pushed him over the edge, removing all restraint and allowing a deeply disturbed individual to fully manifest his violent tendencies. Lord Matthews himself had highlighted the disturbing nature of Yuan's actions in the days following the murder, indulging in drug abuse, watching pornography, and pretending by text to Phoenix's mother that she was still alive. That's sick and really demented, the judge remarked. Dr. Bober concurred, stating that such behavior indicated a lot more scheming, a lot more premeditated intent than a mere impulsive act. It spoke to deeper, more pathological traits that Yuan had successfully hidden from the world. This wasn't just a moment of uncontrolled rage. It was a chillingly sustained act of deception and depravity. The physical act of stabbing, particularly 20 times, with 10 of those wounds to Phoenix's face, underscored the extreme brutality of the crime. Dr. Bober described it as primal and as savage as it gets. Stabbing is inherently personal. It requires close proximity, immense physical exertion, and a profound will to inflict pain. To look into the face of someone you supposedly loved for 2 years and mutilate them in such a way demonstrated a certain level of brutality, a complete lack of empathy and conscience. It's completely depraved, Dr. Bober stated, echoing the sentiments of everyone who learned of the case. Even with drugs in the system, the sheer physicality and mental detachment required to commit such an act spoke of a deeply disturbed individual. Yuan might claim he was out of control, or didn't know what I was doing, but such claims were often convenient narratives for those facing the consequences of their actions. The methodical nature of the attack, coupled with the calculated cover-up, painted a picture of someone whose moral compass was utterly shattered. The trial concluded, the sentence delivered, but the echoes of loss reverberated through the Horn family. Every day was a struggle, a constant reminder of Phoenix's absence. They remembered her laughter, her kindness, her dreams. They looked at old photographs, cherished memories now tinged with an unbearable sorrow. The comfort of justice, while significant, could never truly heal the gaping wound left by her murder. They were forever changed, forever bound by the tragedy that had stolen their bright, beloved Phoenix. Sarah Horn, Phoenix's mother, became an accidental advocate. Her grief, though immense, was tempered by a fierce resolve. She spoke openly about the dangers of hidden abuse, urging families to trust their instincts, to pay attention to subtle changes, and to reach out for help. Her strength in the face of such devastation inspired many. She embodied the very spirit of Phoenix, rising from the ashes, turning her unimaginable pain into a driving force for change, ensuring that her daughter's name would not be forgotten, but rather stand as a symbol of protection and awareness. The charity Phoenix's family supported began its vital work, using the donated funds to provide safe havens, counseling, and resources for women experiencing domestic abuse. They told Phoenix's story, not to sensationalize, but to educate and empower. They understood that many victims fought an unseen battle, trapped in cycles of violence, often by partners who, like Yuan, projected a normal facade to the outside world. Phoenix's legacy became a lifeline for others, a beacon of hope in the darkest of circumstances. Behind prison walls, Yuan Methan began his life sentence. The sterile environment, the regimented routine, the forced solitude, this was his new reality. Whether he ever truly comprehended the depth of his depravity, or if his apology letter was indeed a calculated performance, remained a question only he could answer. But the consequences were absolute. He was stripped of his freedom, his future, and the possibility of ever harming another innocent life. His existence was now a cold, stark testament to the devastating power of unbridled rage and pathological control. Phoenix Spencer Horn should still be here. Her laughter should still fill rooms, her dreams should still be unfolding. But in her tragic absence, her name became synonymous with strength, resilience, and action. Her family found a way to transform their profound sorrow into a powerful legacy, ensuring that Phoenix's story would continue to lift others up, to inspire change, and to protect the vulnerable. Though her light was extinguished too soon by a heinous act, Phoenix endured. Her spirit, her love, and the profound impact she had on her family and community continued to shine brightly, an eternal flame rising from the ashes, forever remembered.